All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. We are back today predicting the Hungarian Grand Prix. We had a weekend of no Formula One, which was no fun. But Brandon, you are fresh, back off vacation, rested, and ready to make the best of bold predictions. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited. The Formula One is back again this week, and we've got a double header before we head into the summer break. So that's exciting. And yeah, vacation was great. So I'm feeling ready to record a podcast.
I'm glad you're nice and rested. You got a lovely tan, a glow I can see through the screen. If you're listening to the audio version, just take my word for it. Brandon is looking quite lovely today. Yeah, I'm excited for these upcoming races as well. I think we're in the best stretch of the F1 calendar. Just all these European races are just on some spectacular tracks that provide incredible racing, and we've been seeing incredible racing in all these races with the field getting as close as it is. So these next two races before the summer break should be action-packed as well.
Yeah, they should. Especially like Hungary has provided some great races for us in the past, as well as Spa is always a really fun track to watch racing at. So it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We're starting off with the Hungarian Grand Prix. Brandon, who is your podium pusher of the weekend for this upcoming race in Hungary?
My podium push of the weekend, I feel like I've been predicting him to do well a lot, and he hasn't been doing as well as I've hoped. But I'm going to keep riding the train, the Oscar Piastri train. That is, I think Oscar's going to have a great weekend. I just feel like, man, he is so close to like breaking through and getting that first victory in Formula One, and I think that Oscar is going to have a solid weekend in Hungary. So yeah, I'm going with Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great shout. I would say more that McLaren have been letting him down more than Oscar has been letting himself down, especially at the British Grand Prix. The more and more that I've looked back on that race, the more and more I'm like, Oscar Piastri probably should have won that Grand Prix. He was definitely the fastest driver on track for a good portion of that race, especially in the changeable conditions. I think McLaren just got his strategy wrong and obviously left him out there too long and ended up ruining his race. So yeah, I could definitely see a bounce back weekend from Oscar Piastri this weekend. I've gone for George Russell as my podium pusher of the weekend. I think he will truly have a bounce back weekend. I think he was probably on for a win in the British Grand Prix as well. We predicted the two drivers who had a good shot of winning the Grand Prix last time out, but didn't get a chance to for situations outside of their control. But George Russell has been performing very well recently, really all season long. He's been the class of Mercedes. He's beaten Lewis Hamilton pretty soundly, the pole position last time out in Silverstone. Unfortunately, had to retire from the Grand Prix, but I do expect Hungary to be a track that suits Mercedes fairly well again. I think back to last year, Lewis Hamilton ended up on pole at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and Mercedes had a package that performed fairly well there. And so, if Mercedes come back to Hungary performing well, I think trends will continue, and George Russell will be the driver to perform best out of that team, and I think we'll have a good weekend here in Hungary.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, Mercedes has been performing really well the past few weekends. I mean, Toto even said that Mercedes is definitely back after the British Grand Prix. Um, so to hear him talk about the confidence that he has in the team, which I think is something that we haven't heard from Toto in a while, that's pretty exciting. And I think, yeah, George and Mercedes will probably have a great weekend in Hungary. We'll see if they can win a third race in a row.
That would be absolutely insane if Mercedes won a third race in a row. I think you're right. I kind of just thought about that in my head that Toto Wolff has been like doom and gloom since we showed up for testing in 2022. He was like, "This sucks. We're terrible. I hate it here. This is the worst Mercedes has ever been. This is awful." And then now he's smiling again. So that's been nice to see out of Toto Wolff. Brandon, who is your back marker of the weekend?
My back mark of the weekend, I've gone with Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin and Fernando, they've been putting together some good weekends recently for the team. They've kind of got that pretty strong grip on fifth place, I believe, in the Constructors Championship. So, yeah, I think that they've been so too inconsistent this season for them to have another good weekend, basically. So I think that Fernando is gonna maybe go out Q3, maybe at the back of Q2, and then not score any points, which would be, in my opinion, back mark of the weekend for him. That's definitely, I think, less than he could get from the car that this weekend. So we'll see what happens. But I think Fernando's not going to have the most positive weekend.
I think that's a great prediction. I saw something online the other day that was Lance Stroll saying that every single Aston Martin upgrade didn't work, which is just astounding to me. If you go complete 0% on your upgrades. That's insane. But it's been a weird season for Aston Martin. They've definitely had a slump. Fernando Alonso has been beaten by his teammate Lance Stroll more than we would expect. They look like they kind of turned it around in Great Britain. You know, they ended up back in Q3. They both scored points, but I'm not ready to get on the Aston Martin or the fifth fastest team once again train. And so, yeah, I could definitely see a poor weekend for Aston Martin. I've gone for Yuki Tsunoda as my back marker of the weekend. I'm thinking back to this time last year where Daniel Ricciardo made his return to Formula One with AlphaTauri and proceeded to beat Yuki Tsunoda right away. I'm not necessarily saying that Yuki Tsunoda is going to have a bad weekend. I just think that Daniel Ricciardo is going to have a better weekend. We've seen Daniel perform well in Hungary in the past. I'm thinking of 2014, he won there. 2018, he had a really great comeback drive. Even his last race there with McLaren, he put on some good moves and had that double overtake on the Alpines. And so I think as we get closer to the summer break and these rumors continue to swirl about the Red Bull drivers and where they'll be for the second half of the season and next year, I think Daniel Ricciardo outperforming Yuki Tsunoda this weekend will be made to be a bigger deal than maybe it really is. And so I think for that reason, people might look down on Yuki Tsunoda, and he's going to be my back marker this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a great prediction. If you also remember the year that Esteban won in Hungary, Daniel would have probably won that race had he not had that little bit of contact in the big incident in turn one. Um, but Esteban was there to pick up the pieces there, and if Daniel had not been caught up in that, Daniel would have been the one to win that race. Which was 2021, I believe. So, yeah, I think that's a great prediction. Yuki. I feel like Yuki's often had kind of some mid-season slumps, and this is usually around the time that starts to happen. And then I feel like last few years he's definitely like turned it around towards the end of the season and kind of, right when people are like, man, Yuki's not doing so good, he'll have a couple of good weekends in a row and finish the season strong. But yeah, I think that's a great prediction.
Thank you, Brandon. That means a lot. Your prediction approval, it warms my heart. Who do you think is going to get full prediction this weekend in Hungary?
So I've gone with Lando Norris. I think that McLaren still has the fastest package overall. And Lando has been having some really great qualifying performances. We'll see if he can put it together and get pole. I also think that Mercedes might be in the mix. We talked about how well the Mercedes package has been performing the past couple of races too. So we'll see what happens, but my official prediction is Lando Norris. But it's exciting because there's probably 6 drivers that could all legitimately grab pole position. So we'll see what happens.
Maybe 5 drivers if you're thinking about including 3 teams, but maybe we could throw Charles Leclerc in there from Ferrari and it can still be
That
6.
that's kind of what I was thinking. That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, yeah, Hungary is a shorter track, and Ferraris have performed well, I feel like, at the shorter track this year. So Charles in there. We'll see what happens.
They call Hungary Monaco without the barriers, and Ferrari performed well in Monaco. Obviously, if Charles got pole and won that race, so maybe it's possible. We really just cast a wide net with that one and just said Lando Norris, but also everyone else could be fast too. I'm gonna go with Max Verstappen as my pole prediction. I think we've seen some great performances from Max at Hungary in the past. That's where he got a pole a couple years ago, and so I think he could perform well again this year. We saw him come from 10th place on the grid in Hungary and win once before. And so it's still hard for me to predict against Max Verstappen, even with all of the teams being close and the Red Bull maybe being the second or third fastest package. Just with Max Verstappen being as good of a driver he is and the perfect pairing he is with that RB20, it's just hard for me to predict against Max Verstappen. And I think he's going to get pole this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. It's just so hard to predict because it really feels like we're just throwing up a coin and hoping that we get our predictions right with these pole and qualifying predictions. So it's going to be an exciting weekend, I think. And just to have like a race in Hungary where there's no sprint. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I mean, there was the time at the beginning of the year where anytime we said anyone besides Max Verstappen, it was an insane prediction. And now when we say Max Verstappen, it's like, maybe. So Formula One is in a
Yeah.
great place, and I'm excited for it. Who do you think is going to get third place this weekend in Hungary?
Third place, I have gone with Max Verstappen. Um, I think that, it's going to be so close to the front. Uh, I can't not have Max on the podium in my predictions. I agree with you and like how good a driver he is, how well he's done in Hungary in the past. I just think there's no way he's not on the podium unless there's some kind of retirement, mechanical failure. He runs into somebody else runs into him. We've seen it all happen before. So unless that happens, if Max finishes the race, I think it's on the podium. So um, I've gone with Max in third place.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great prediction there. I saw another thing that said he hasn't finished a race outside the points since like 2016, which is a bonkers stat. So yeah, I think if he finishes, he'll probably come across the line on the podium. Third place, I've gone for George Russell. I think Mercedes are truly a competitive package again. I said in our last podcast that I need to see their pace at a normal Grand Prix, but even in the dry parts of the British Grand Prix, they were fast and they were controlling the race in a 1-2 pretty easily until the rain came down and McLaren had some pace then. And, Austria, George was on for a podium ahead of the likes of Oscar and Carlos Sainz. And so I think there probably is genuine pace there from the Mercedes. I'm not ready to say that it's front running, compete for the race win every single weekend. We'll be up there with Max and Lando every single lap, but I do think there's genuine pace from that Mercedes. I think the turnaround has truly happened, and I think George Russell's going to bring home another podium this weekend in P3.
Yeah, I think that's a great prediction. It's just, Mercedes has done really well, so it'll be exciting to see if they can pull off another podium finish.
Who do you have in second place?
In second place, I have gone, and this was really hard for me to predict between second and first, but I've gone with Oscar Piastri. I think, Oscar is my podium push of the weekend, and I think him getting P2 would definitely, qualify him for a podium push of the weekend from me. Um, I think, I'm just thinking that McLaren's going to be really, really fast this weekend, and I'm hoping that they can score big points to kind of even that battle in the Constructors' Championship and make that more exciting for us to watch. So, yeah, I'm going with Oscar in second place.
That constructors battle keeps getting smaller and smaller. I definitely think Oscar Piastri is a great pick. I'm sure he'll have a good weekend. I'm a little nervous about him because I remember back to Hungary last year. That's when we really saw Oscar have some tire wear concerns compared to Lando Norris. And so this will just be another great example to see how he's improved from his first year to his second season in the sport. We'll see if he's worked out some of those tire wear issues. Second place, I've gone for Oscar Piastri's teammate, Lando Norris. I think McLaren and Red Bull will still be incredibly close at the front. I think Lando Norris will, if he doesn't put it on pole, I'm sure he'll put it up there towards the front, and we should be in for a good Grand Prix. But, the more we see McLaren have a race winning car, I'm just kind of losing a little bit of confidence that they're actually ready as a team to continually compete for race wins. But I do think they're definitely up there fighting for wins and fighting for podiums week in and week out. And so I feel like Lando Norris P2 is a pretty safe prediction.
I feel like that's also a safe prediction. We've talked about it a lot, but McLaren is kind of going through some growing pains as they get back to the top and figure out how to operate optimally as a whole unit and not just a pit wall or a pit crew or a driver or a race engineer. It seems like every weekend they've got one or multiple of those facets operating really well, and then the others not operating as well. But yeah, well, it'll be exciting to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully they learned a lot from the British Grand Prix because there was definitely some slip ups by McLaren operationally throughout
Yeah.
that race weekend. Who do you have winning the Hungarian Grand Prix?
I have Lando Norris. I am predicting McLaren to kind of break through those growing pains and have a great weekend with a 1-2 finish, which would be the first, I believe, in a long time. maybe the first since Monza 2021 when Daniel won, um, and Lando finished P2. But I think that they have the fastest car, and it's about time that they score a 1-2 finish this season. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, it would have to be the first since Monza 21 because Oscar finished out of the points in Miami thanks to a Carlos Sainz send and a half. But that is all right.
It's
Yeah, I
true.
think a McLaren 1-2 has to be on the cards at some point with how fast their package is. There's no way that it doesn't end up happening at some point. So Hungary could be that race. First place, I've gone for Max Verstappen. Don't think the McLaren 1-2 is coming, even though I am on record in the past saying I think Oscar Piastri could win the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm still going to go with Max Verstappen as my prediction for the race win this weekend. I just think, after seeing his performance in Silverstone when he was the third fastest car and still somehow ended up in second place with that damage from qualifying. He's just inevitable. He's just an incredible driver racing with a car that just suits his driving style so well. And it's not like the RB20 is a terrible car. It's just, not as separated as it was last year. It's still a great package, especially in the hands of Max Verstappen. So, yeah, it's just really, really hard for me to predict against him. And I've got to predict him in first place this weekend.
I think that's fair. Max has really seemed to be kind of always right there, even when things don't go his way. It's like, you know, it's the worst he's going to finish is what, like P5,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's like, it's crazy. I mean, you think about Austria when he and Lando came together, like he finished P5 that race. Or you think about last year in Singapore when Carlos won that race, Max finished still in like P7 or P6, something like that. So it's like he's still scoring points. He's still, you know, it's not like he's retiring from the race or anything like that. So it's kind of crazy.
Just insane how good Max Verstappen is. And so, yeah, I think we're gonna still see him winning races for a long, long time.
It's true. It's true. Unless some of these rumors are true and he's, going to Ferrari or going to Mercedes or all these things that I keep seeing on the internet.
Hey, that's what we said about Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari, so who knows what could happen. Speaking of bold things that could happen, what are your two bold predictions for the Hungarian Grand Prix?
So my two bold predictions, and maybe one of these isn't so bold, but I'll start out with my more bold one, I think. Um, I'm predicting Logan Sargent to outperform Alex Albon over the course of the weekend, um, which is kind of a broad prediction to say like, this outperforms him over the course of the weekend, but I figured I would give Logan as much of a chance as possible. Um, so yeah, I think Logan's been performing really well these past few weeks. I mean, relatively speaking, and I think this is going to be the weekend where we can all come out and say afterwards that Logan specifically, no question about it, outperforms Alex Albon. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a Q3 qualifying performance. I don't know if that's points in the race and Alex doesn't score. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things, but I think we're going to come out and say, without a question, Logan Sargent outperforms Alex Albon this weekend.
Yeah, here's what that can't be. If it's like he's in front in the free practices and then gets trounced in the competitive sessions, I'm not I'm not giving you that one.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, but I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it just leaves a lot of room for a good discussion.
Yeah, maybe so, maybe so. What's your second bold prediction, Brandon?
My second bold prediction is that we're gonna see at least one driver contract re-signing, driver move, some silly season thing be announced this weekend. Um, so we're getting close to the summer break. That's when a lot of the teams want to kind of end those negotiation talks and sign somebody so they can focus on the rest of the season and not have to worry about who's going to be driving the car in 2025. So I think we're getting to that time. This might be a little early with how things have kind of played out this season. Like some things have happened way sooner than we thought they would, and other signings haven't been announced when we thought they would be announced 2 months ago. So we'll see what happens, but I kind of feel some silliness in the air. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there could definitely be something coming up on the horizon. Obviously, Liam Lawson had that Red Bull test last weekend after Silverstone. Apparently, Red Bull were pretty underwhelmed by it. They set him a benchmark time and he ended up like 2/10 off. So they were kind of underwhelmed, and apparently mechanics from within the team weren't super impressed with his performance either. So we'll have to see if that changes things in the Red Bull family. I've also seen that Valtteri Bottas is on Williams' radar now that they've gotten a little frustrated with Carlos Sainz not being able to make a commitment, and they might be moving towards Valtteri Bottas. And if that's true, I think Valtteri would take that seat in a heartbeat because I don't know if he's guaranteed a
Absolutely.
spot on the grid next season like some of these other drivers still unsigned might be. So I think it's possible. I could see it. Don't want to rule it out. I think those are some good predictions for sure.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
My two bold predictions. First, I've got Stake scoring their first point or points of 2024, which seems like a crazy prediction because that car is an absolute trash can with wheels taped to the bottom of it. But Hungary last year saw Guan Yu Zhou's best qualifying performance until he decided to absolutely mess it up off the line, and Valtteri Bottas ended up a row behind him. So both were in Q3 and not even at the bottom end of Q3. I'm pretty sure it was a P6 and a P8. So we've seen them have performance there before. Who knows if it'll happen again this year, but they've got to score at some point, surely. And I feel like this is a weekend where it just might happen. My second prediction, Sergio Perez out in Q2. Now, this might not be super bold because brother makes it to Q3 about once every 5 seasons of Formula One. But the Q2 specific part is where I'm going to put my point. So if he's out in Q1, I'm not going to take my point. I think he's going to qualify like P11. I think it's going to be one of those things where he's sitting there right on the edge and we see him get bumped right at the end. So the P11 is not my point prediction, but the Q2 is what I'm saying. If he ends up P11, then it's just like, man, Justin really knows what he's talking about. But yeah, Sergio Perez out in Q2 for my second bold prediction.
Yeah, I think that's a great prediction. I think, yeah, Sergio's kind of in this weird no man's land. We've talked a lot about it, but um, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. There's a lot of rumors swirling around him and his seat and um, these ultimatums that Red Bull may have put in his contract and that kind of thing. So it's really interesting, and I think a P11 would not be what he needs this weekend, but it might be what he deserves. So I don't know. We'll see what it ends.
Well, I saw some things that he signed like a negative contract extension, and that would be insane if that's what Red Bull did. I saw something that these clauses weren't in his old contract, and he signed this new contract for the next 2 seasons that had these clauses that he could be dropped mid-season this year or for the 2025 season if he underperformed. And so I'm like, that is big brain moves from Red Bull if they're like, we want to get rid of Sergio Perez. Let's re-sign him and put these in here so we can get rid of him. That would be nuts.
That would be insane. That would be crazy, unprecedented.
Sergio Perez performing so bad that he signed Formula One's first negative zero point 0.5 year contract extension.
And well, maybe that's all he could get. I don't know. I don't know.
That is wild.
But
Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts before we leave these lovely people?
podium thoughts, man. I'm excited for these next couple of weeks. A little sad summer breaks coming up, but it's okay. We're gonna have some great content coming out. We'll still have some great things to talk about over the summer break. Hopefully, with where driver moves announced, we'll be able to talk about that, or we'll at least be able to speculate about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next couple of races. I love watching racing in Spa specifically. It's a really fun track to watch racing at, and even drive at on the Formula One video games as well. It's a good one. Um, it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks, and I'm excited for the second half of the season to start. You know, it's around 13, so getting closer and closer there, finding out who the world champions are going to be. So that's exciting as well.
Absolutely. Even though Formula One will be going for the summer break, the Podium Pushers won't be going anywhere. We'll still have plenty of content for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. It is always a pleasure to get to come on here and talk with you guys about Formula One. As always, like, subscribe, follow, do all the things wherever you are watching or listening, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all the podcast platforms, all the places. We're probably there, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah.